Macy Lee, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Kristina, for having me.
I'm asking everybody the same question to start.
Excellent.
Here's your free chance to introduce yourself and tell us why you're running.
My name is Macy Lee, and I am one of 7 candidates running for Norfolk County District Attorney. And I decided to run because that office needs some significant changes organizationally, management, and I'm the person that has the experience to do so of all the candidates. I supervise large public-facing organizations. I'm currently the director of the Office of Medicaid Board of Hearings, and I have approximately 60 staff. It fluctuates based on attrition. We're approved to have new staff coming in August, so it'll probably reach around 60. I was also the chief of the narcotics unit at Suffolk County District Attorney's Office. I held that position for 10 years, and I managed large-scale, widespread wiretap investigations. I did 9 of them during my 10 years as the chief, and I've managed 20 staff members. I've also helped manage, I should say, the drug control unit of the Boston Police Department, which is the largest investigative unit in Boston Police, and as well as numerous other law enforcement, federal, state, and municipal agencies. So I'm the only one with that type of experience where I know how to manage. I'm a change agent. I've gone into already 2 organizations, look at it, figure out, figure out what the goals should be for these units or offices. And I've done that, twice. And I don't think being the Norfolk County District Attorney, that's a position where you learn on the job. Someone who should come in and already know how to hire, fire, discipline, organize, and just sort of overhaul that office and change the culture of that office as well.
So on that note, you're an outsider in the sense that you don't have history in the Norfolk DA's office, but you're an insider in that, you know, you're in the state, you've been here a long time, you worked in the Suffolk County DA's office. Why the Norfolk County DA's office, and what was the catalyst for you to decide to run?
I've lived in Norfolk County for, it's going on 24 years. I moved there in 2003. My parents have lived in Milton in Norfolk County going on 40 years now. So I've always had a connection to Norfolk County, and I'm also very involved in my own community. I'm on the Warrant Committee in Milton. I served as a board member of Dove Incorporated, which is a nonprofit, a wonderful nonprofit organization that advocates and supports survivors of domestic violence. Yeah, I'm also involved with the garden club in my town, so I'm really involved in my town, in my own community. And when I looked at Norfolk County and thought about running, and it's been in the back of my head for quite some time, but didn't really make a solid decision until February, I realized that Norfolk County has the greatest amount of Asian American in terms of the population, and it's underrepresented. And it's about 40% in Quincy. It's now giving almost like 20% in Braintree, definitely about 30% in Randolph, and growing in Weymouth. And there's no representation, and there's no diversity in the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. One of the things that I did when I became the director of where I am now was to diversify my agency, because we serve over 1 million members of Mass Health, and we handle close to 30,000 appeals, and it'll probably be more this year given a lot of changes in the Medicaid program, federal mandates. And so I have hired a lot of staff that speak different languages, that represents the community in which we serve, and I plan on doing that. And no one else has the ability to do that, has an understanding of what it's like to have immigrant parents, to be able to speak a second language. I speak fluent Chinese Cantonese, and when I'm out campaigning in Quincy or Braintree and Weymouth, I speak to a lot of folks in that language. And the need to build that gap, to bridge that gap between cultural and language differences. There's a large Cape Verdean community in Randolph and Stoughton, and I have the support of that community. And so it's just thinking outside of the box of what's traditionally been managed and led by the District Attorney of Norfolk County.
Okay, interesting. I think a lot of the conversation, and kind of an unavoidable fact, is that this is a really crowded race, right? There's 7 people running. That's a lot of people for a Democratic primary for one district attorney's office. And momentum really kind of built up following these 2 high-profile trials against Karen Reed in the county. Did that factor into your decision at all?
It did, definitely did. Just by how they were handled, And yeah, how both the Karen Reed trial, or I like to say the death of John O'Keefe, how that was investigated and how it was handled, and how Sandra Birchmore's death was handled. And now with all these really hateful communications between two law enforcement officers that should be trusted by our community, and how that has revealed it. And it shows a really hateful culture, a culture that's misogynistic, that's racist, that's really personal to me on both. I mean, I identify as obviously a person of color and as a woman, but anti-Semitic as well. It hits every corner of our communities, unless you're a white male. And to me, that just shows that there has been a systemic issue. And it does lead me to wonder, with regards to the Karen Reed trial, based on those text messages, how that was investigated and how a woman was ultimately arrested and charged. So it makes me wonder how the whole investigation went down, particularly by these two law enforcement officers that are clearly racist and misogynist.
And that's Michael Proctor and former Sergeant Good, who you're talking about.
That's right.
I want to ask you about a few of these high-profile cases in the community. So let's talk first about Karen Reed. I'm giving everybody this question. So if you had been the district attorney in January of 2022 when Officer O'Keefe's body was found on Brian Albert's front lawn in Canton, knowing what you know now, is Karen Reed the person you would have charged?
No.
And no.
No.
Okay. Elaborate.
Knowing what I know now, and like I said, I only know what the public knows. I
Right.
have not gone through the case file.
And you're not inside the office.
I'm not inside the office. I haven't gone through the forensic evidence, all the investigation that went in. But I definitely feel that the investigation, based on what we know now, and I mean now, present day, there seems to be some bias towards Karen Reed and towards women. And I think those biases, which have no place in law enforcement, tainted the investigation. So I think, knowing what I know now and the circumstances surrounding the investigation, so no, I don't think I would have charged her. I also think that given the amount of alcohol that she consumed, and I think that's very public and that's been part of the record, I don't think she could have formulated even the intent to leave a scene of a crime. I mean, if anything, definitely operating under the influence. But all the other charges, no.
Would you have charged someone else? Would you have sought to charge someone else?
Perhaps, if I looked at the record and saw what happened. I know that the crime scene was not handled the way it should have been handled. From what I know, again, what we all know in the public.
Right, the public record.
Yes, so perhaps.
Do you have any idea who that would be based on what you know?
No.
Okay.
Now, I don't know enough to say at this point.
Interesting.
But as district attorney, I certainly will look at the case again.
Yeah, that's my next question. What will you do now?
I will look at the whole case file. I will look at I will look at everything that's available and do a reevaluation by prosecutors who are not in the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. Hopefully it'll be my team of former homicide prosecutors that will come in and just take a real good look with a fresh perspective.
Let's talk about that staffing-wise before we get into the other cases. This is often a question when someone new comes into that office or in a position like that. Are you going to clean house? Are you going to keep some people? What's the process going to be?
Definitely not clean house, but definitely go through the whole office and restructure it and look at it in terms of how each level in that office is supervised, what current units are there, the experience of these people who are in current supervisory positions. I will look at the entire office, as I did with the Office of Medicaid Board of Hearings. I will look and restructure it and see where there are areas that need supervision. I will certainly bring people in that are on my campaign team, and most of these people, they're women, and they're former prosecutors at the Suffolk DA's office, which we all know is the largest prosecutor's office in New England, and have tried homicide cases one after another, not just high profile, not just cases that were highly politicized in that office, but people who have women that have fantastic experience and that have moved on to do other things and bring a whole different level of skill set to that position. Because I'm a big believer that one of the things about being a good leader in management is bringing different skill sets. So I've been in public service for 32 years, but I have worked in numerous different offices. I've been in the Attorney General's office, I've been in a prosecutor's office in the state of Ohio. I've been in the Suffolk County DA's office, and now I'm with the Executive Office of Health and Human Services. So I have a lot of different levels of experience, and I've had private practice experience as well. And my team consists of all these experiences. We haven't been, none of us have been in the Norfolk DA's office.
And you think that's a good thing?
It is a good thing because it brings a whole different perspective of coming in and doing things differently and taking from our own experiences, especially mine, of how offices should run and how they should respond and serve well to the public.
Interesting. You have spoken about him already, but let's talk about former State Trooper Michael Proctor, fired State Trooper Michael Proctor. He was placed on leave following the mistrial in Karen Reed's case in 2024. And that was after just a small snippet of his text messages had been revealed in public. More have been revealed in the last month or so that are, you know, perhaps not even arguably much worse than anybody originally knew. If you're DA, you're going to have to deal with the continued fallout of cases he was involved in, including, you know, murder convictions in that county. How do you plan to handle that?
I plan on handling it by creating a conviction integrity unit. I was the head of the narcotics unit at Suffolk when the Annie Dukin, who was a chemist at the Hinton lab, and I had to dismiss hundreds of drug cases.
That unraveled a lot of cases.
It unraveled a lot, and it affected mostly Middlesex, Suffolk, and Norfolk. And there was another chemist out in Western Mass that affected cases out there too. So I've already have the experience of handling crisis management, of tainted evidence, of lack of integrity in the criminal process. So I would handle it the same way. I would go through every case and figure out any cases that were touched by Proctor or good needs to be reviewed, I should say, and have them looked at and see if any of the evidence was tainted and whether there was any lack of integrity in arrest. Those are going to be really hard, but the cases that we did, that the office did indict and then went to a trial or a plea, it needs to be reviewed systemically and throughout and see what their involvement was, whether they were involved with whether a primary lead investigator in those cases, whether they handled any evidence. So yes, they all need it. Now if they had a very, very minor, if they were just at the scene and didn't handle any interviews or evidence, it would be a different level. But if they were directly involved in any of the investigations, whether they testified in trial, yes, they would need to be reviewed. I can't say that word today.
It's okay.
Reviewed.
So that would include the Brian Walsh case. He was just convicted.
Yes.
This year?
Yes.
Last year?
Last year.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we would have discovery packets. So any cases that, you know, that are still ongoing, handled by these two officers, there would be a whole Rule 14 discovery packet that needed to be given to opposing counsel. Okay. So yes, so they would need to be systemically reviewed. I said it right this time.
There you go.
And looked at, and I have the experience of doing that with Annie Dukin, of having to go through all these cases, working closely with the unit that handle all the drug evidence that involved Suffolk County cases, and we're talking about thousands. I think she affected about 20 to 30,000 cases. So it's a lot of cases, and that took years. And some people may think that's paper pushing, but no, that's what you have to do. You have to go through every case, and I can't think of anyone who doesn't have the experience of doing that or worked in their office during the time can do it with a clean, fresh eye, and without any bias or,
The next case I wanted to ask you about is Aiden Carney, the social media blogger, Turtleboy, as he's known. He's facing an indictment for a number of witness intimidation charges connected to the whole Karen Reed case. And he will likely go to trial under the next DA's tenure. So if that's you, do you have a plan for that?
He goes to trial just like anyone else. I mean, one of the things that I strongly believe in is that cases should not be publicized. Everyone's case is important, and it shouldn't have to take something as publicized as the Karen Reed case for us to give that attention. So everyone's case is important. Whether it's a murder case, a sexual assault case, or something as simple as like a robbery or armed robbery. That's not simple, but what I mean is like there's different levels of cases, and they all deserve the focus and the attention by the Norfolk County DA's office. So in his case,
there's a special prosecutor who's hired. Would you keep him on and just let the case?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I would have to look at it. Like I said, what I know about the case is what everyone else knows of it. Yeah. I never seen the file. I've never even seen a police report that went with the case, but I would have to look at it. But witness intimidation it's an important thing. I mean, that a lot of our cases as prosecutors depend on witnesses, and if there's an outside factor intimidating witnesses from going forward, that obstructs justice. And that's not something to be taken lightly. And no, I have not made any promises. I've never spoken to him. I've never had any interactions with him. But there would be no promises based on my campaign of not prosecuting him for support. And my understanding on social media is that one particular candidate's already made a promise to dismiss those charges. No, and that's not the case here. Okay. I have not interacted with him and have no intentions of doing so.
I took a look at your campaign contributions. It seems like you have a lot of support from a lot of police organizations. Yeah, yep. Just talk about that connection, and do you worry that could be a hindrance at all given a lack of trust in police, especially in Norfolk County at the moment? So
I've been endorsed by 2 people affiliated with law enforcement. William Gross, who I think is the beloved former commissioner of the Boston Police Department. He's retired. And he's always been a big supporter of mine way before I decided to run for district attorney. And then the Boston Police Patrolman Association has endorsed me too, because again, I've worked with them for 15 years and we have a very good relationship in terms of trust and working really well together. And neither one of those endorsements have anything to do with Norfolk County. Okay. They don't represent police officers in Norfolk County. They have nothing to do with law enforcement in Norfolk County. I know other candidates have sought endorsements from law enforcement agencies in Norfolk County, which I think is a conflict of interest. And if there's a public corruption issue, you'll be conflicted out. One candidate has collected tons of endorsements from local and state level elected officials, which I also think is wrong.
Can you name the candidate?
I prefer not to. Okay. But I think if you go through your book, you know who I'm talking about. And I think that's a huge issue, because if that elected official's child is pulled over for OUI, political endorsements are IOUs, and I think they're fine in terms of other levels of offices if there's a policy alignment on the legislature, but the district attorney should remain unbiased, independent, and free of outside influences when it comes to deciding whether or not to charge a case. And if you are endorsed by elected officials on a local or state level, that poses an issue of being unbiased. I don't know how you can do that if somebody is embezzling money, for example, or there's a public corruption case. You'll have to remove yourself from the investigation and hire outside counsel. And we saw what happened with Karen Reed. We spent over $1 million in taxpayers' money having to hire outside counsel. And there you go. And that's going to be another waste of taxpayers' money. So I think it's best as a candidate to remove yourself from those situations. So the 2 endorsements that I do have, they have nothing to do with Norfolk County. And some of the contributions, I wouldn't say there are a lot, there are a few. Yes, for sure, they're retired police officers. Most of them they're retired. They either live in Norfolk County or they have gone away, or they live in other towns. So they have no influence from me as the Norfolk County District Attorney, unlike other candidates that have received contributions from victims of families, from defense counsel.
So it's Greg Conner who you're talking about.
I'm talking about Greg Conner, I'm talking about Adam Deitch, I'm talking about Juna Perkins. They have all collected endorsements, contributions from people that I think that will prevent them from being unbiased.
Right, it might present a conflict.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
You mentioned the word corruption, and that's a word that's kind of gotten thrown around a lot in Norfolk County. Do you think that's the right word? I mean, do you think that the current Norfolk County DA's office is corrupt?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, from what I know, I don't think so. There are a lot of good people that work there, good people, honest, and just trying to do their job. So I would say that there is definitely misconduct, and I don't know if that's attributed to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, but certainly law enforcement misconduct that we've seen with Proctor and Good, without a doubt. I mean, corruption to me is a whole grand scheme of like a big conspiracy to do public wrong, right? And I don't see that. And I think most law enforcement, they work hard, they go home, they have families. And just like everyone, you know, there's always bad apples. I mean, teachers, right? I mean, we look at Needham. We have teachers, 2 teachers that possess child pornography. Does that make every teacher a bad person or a bad teacher? It does not, right? And there's lawyers that are similarly engaging in misconduct. It doesn't mean that everyone who's, you know, who's a practicing attorney a bad attorney or someone who's unethical. So no, I don't believe that. I don't think there's widespread corruption within the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. What I do think it was poor leadership, poor management, lacking organizational oversight.
Let's talk about Michael Morrissey. I'm curious, you know, he's been in this office for 16 years. He's the one leaving the office. What's your current position on him, and in particular, kind of the way he's handled the public pressure for the last 3 or so years?
I think that he has lacked engagement with the public in the last few years. He has not gone out to the community and engaged with these communities and to try to figure out what are some of the issues that your community is facing. Because Norfolk County is very big. It consists of 27 towns in a city, and everyone has their own issues. And during the campaign, as I've traveled to all these towns, everyone has certain issues, and public safety is definitely an issue. But it is different. One of the things that I did learn is that drugs seems to be on the list of public safety issues. And even I spent 10 years as the head of the narcotics unit. It still surprises me, and I don't know why, because I'm not in it now. I haven't been in 5 years, but I'm still like, oh my gosh, it's still an issue. But there's a lack of community engagement. There is a lack of reaching out to a lot of, again, the cultural and language differences that office has with the community. I'm hearing that a lot from particular communities. And I also think that I'm a big believer that government is good when it's a slow revolving door, because it's good to bring in fresh perspectives and fresh experiences in the office, because if you don't do that, 16 years, it becomes stagnant and it fails to evolve. And it fails to meet the needs of the residents to which you serve. So I think that there seems to be a lack of engagement and just some comfort level where I think, again, Karen Reed and Sandra Birchmore, it showed, right? I mean, you get an autopsy report and you think, oh, okay, here's the medical examiner's report. It's ruled suicide. Okay, we're done. And they're really long. They're like 25. I mean, the ones that I used to handle, they're very long. And you go through them, and they're very particular, these ME reports. And other than Greg Connor and myself, I mean, no one else has handled a homicide case. And I mean, Greg and I are the only ones that are on the ballot that have that experience. And you need someone, you need a prosecutor or someone with that experience.
On the Sandra Birchmore case, what I've heard from inside Norfolk County is that essentially, you know, people in the DA's office did take the medical examiner's report kind of as gospel. You know, the medical examiner ruled it a suicide. That's the end of what we can do as far as charging anybody. What would you have done differently, either at that point or maybe later when the independent medical examiner said it wasn't a suicide?
I think it starts before that. You get the ME report, the autopsy report, right? And you look at it. And if you see anything that's indicative, that's contrary to suicide, you would send it back and say, hey, I want you to look at this again. That's my experience when I've seen ME reports. Or you could do a judicial inquest. But that's one of the things you should look at and before adopting it. And you should say, you know, this doesn't look right. There's DNA under her fingernails that doesn't belong to her. There are marks around her neck. And again, for the record, I have not seen the ME report. This is just what I've read based on the news. But I would send it back and say, you need to look at this again. And reevaluate your conclusion on this report. And that takes experience. It's not just going out there and saying, Sandra Birchmore. It's more than that. It's the whole systemic issue with the office, with the ME. With the Stone police officers, that's a whole, that's a different issue. That's a different issue. But with the ME report, the office should have done that.
Right, the DA is not in charge of fixing Stoughton Police necessarily, but they are tasked with charging the case.
Exactly, and when you look at that ME report, you look at it for the reason of charging and seeing if you have evidence, probable cause, right, for any charges. And to take that conclusion, suicide on face value, was wrong, in my opinion. And that should have been sent back. That should have been reevaluated.
I have 2 more questions for you. The first being, who do you consider to be your biggest competition in this race, and why?
You know, unless there's real polling, which I have not seen, it's really hard to say. It's really hard to say. I can't pinpoint. I view everyone who's running to be a competitor. And the only thing I could do is just keep working hard and getting my message out there and connecting with the community, not relying on endorsements, not relying on having a large campaign fund. Because you can have $2 million or $1 million or whatever you have, and rest comfortable on that. It's not, it's connecting with the voters. So I really can't say.
You can't pick one person.
I really can't. I look at everyone every day, every morning when I wake up and say, every one of them have their strengths, and they present something competitive about them. And I'm not going to just say, oh, well, I'm not going to focus on this one person. This person doesn't stand a chance. No, you just don't know how voters are going to be. So the only way to do it is to go out there and connect with voters every single day. And so I can't say. I view everyone on the ballot to be a notable competitor.
Okay. My last question, which I'm giving to everybody, it requires my timer.
Okay.
You're going to get 30 seconds to make your final elevator pitch.
Okay.
All right, ready, and go.
I'm the only candidate on the ballot with management and leadership and a combination of prosecutorial experience to make real, long-lasting changes. Everyone can say they are, but they will, but no one can. And I've done it twice. I'm a proven change agent, and if you really want change in Norfolk County, you should vote for me on September 1st.
In 20 seconds. There you go. Succinct. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Is this still rolling?
Almost no.
Okay, good.